Yeah, this is my story. ASAP preach. See, I've been through a lot, You can hear it when I cry out. I remember on the road so drunk, didn't know where I was in the moment, then I wiped out. Didn't see at the time, couldn't lead, that was blind. Never thought I would be on the right route. Now I couldn't see, it was lights out. Didn't know that God had a plan, wouldn't be here right now. But God said, son, I could get you out of this mess. I could give you rest from the stress in your mind. I could give you light, I can make it right. Send you about to take a left, now turn to me. I want to, Lord, I can feel it, I'm surrounded by death. Please take it away with all of my stress. I can feel you breaking these chains right off of my chest. Right now. Never knew you were watching my steps. Calling me blessed, yeah. I was living life for all of myself. Following the evil one to offer me wealth. That's right. And I used to go to clubs at night, had guns, got high, used to bust at night. Go to parties, spread them up, and it wasn't right. And I went anyway, thought I loved that life, but no. I was in sin, I was all in it. I thought I was hard and authentic. When I had a job, I'd call in sick, then hit the mall and go talk to women. Thank God I'm forgiven no longer. Ascended through Christ, I'm delivered in, not alone. Looking back at the old me, I could never figure it out. I was chosen and now I know
how to love, how to live. Now I'm stronger than ever before. Now I know, write my pain in a song, tell the world that my story's been told. Now I know.
Man, I wish somebody would have told me the truth a long time ago. Nobody sat me down and say, look, this ain't that and that ain't this. I was deceived for so long. It's only right that I expose all this deception in the mighty name of Jesus. Carry on, young soldier. Listen. Who told you gangsters go to heaven? Huh? Who told you money make you real? Tell me, who told you pistols make you tough? Hey, you don't see all the dead bodies on the field? Man, who said that mercy's for the weak? Who said forgiveness is for chumps? They say a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a soldier dies but once. Hey, they mourn you for a week and they forget you in a month. Who told you God doesn't exist? Who told you God was just a myth? Who planted seeds of disbelief inside your mind so you could trip? Hey, who told you Jesus doesn't love you? Who said you couldn't be forgiven? Do you not know how much he loves you? Listen, do you not know the king is risen? Who told you Christian rap was whack? Whoever said that man was whack. The truth will hit you hard and knock you flat down on your back. Who told you Christian rap was whack? Whoever said that man was whack. The truth hit you so hard and knock you flat down on your back. Hey, two things either happen. Hey, one, you gon' get mad and hate me for correcting you, for pointing out what's bad. Or two, you get convicted and cry out because you sad and ask God to forgive you for the trespasses you had. You either run to him or run from him. And I just pray you come to him. Put down all your blunts and guns and you say, Lord, I'm done with this. You run to him or run from him. I just pray you come to him. Put down all your blunts and guns and you say, Lord, I'm done with this. Everything they told me was a lie. Man, I know that now. It's only right we hit the streets and we expose that now. A dirty devil should've killed me. Hey, Holy Spirit, come and seal me. Fill me with new strength again. Now I'm feeling new inside. Lord, I abide in you and follow you where you abide. Fill me with new strength again. Now I'm feeling new inside. Lord, I abide in you and follow you where you abide. Hey, I confide in you with confidence, my Lord, cause greater is he who lives in me than he who's of this world. Hey, I confide in you with confidence, my Lord. Greater is he who lives in me than he who's of this world. Who told you God couldn't be trusted? Man, I'm trying to tell you, you could trust him. He loves you deeply, please believe me. He hates to see his children suffering. See, I don't know what all they told you, and I don't even know who told you. I just know that he's the answer. He gives hope, man, to the hopeless. I don't know what all they told you, and I don't even know who told you. I just know that Christ the answer. He gives hope, man, to the hopeless. Yeah. Who told you?
All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Beyond the Veil. It has been a little bit, everyone. I have been restricted here on YouTube. They have found something that they didn't like here lately and deleted one of my most recent videos and put a 1 week restriction on my account. So I have to be more careful here. So I would like to start off tonight a little differently by saying this video is for entertainment purposes only. You can take this stuff and use it for your own resources as learning and just wanting to figure things out. I want to say also that I'm not trying to twist or turn anything. So yeah, there's that. However, you're supposed to say that stuff for YouTube to get off your back a little bit because they've been on my case, hence only having 44 people here live right now. But welcome 44 of you. If you could, while you're coming in, go on and hit that like button or subscribe button or share button. Any of those three would be great so you can get a little jump in algorithm and get some people in here. But I'm going to go on and get into things tonight, only because we have a whole lot to unpack tonight, which is probably going to end up turning into a series here coming up in the next week. So I'm just going to forewarn on that for those who are wondering how long this video may be. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do tonight is just jump straight into it. Okay. One thing we've been uncovering and unpacking lately is the whole James and John and Peter scenario, and also the, I guess you can say, twin flame, or I don't like that because it sounds so new agey. The twins in the Bible that's constantly all over the place as far as multiple names. Okay, it goes all the way back to the beginning of your Bible when you have a good Enoch and you have a bad Enoch, and you have a good Methuselah, you have a bad Methuselah, you have a good Lamech, you have a bad Lamech. Okay, it goes on and on and on. Hence the two seed lines with enmity, hatred between them. Okay, Cain was the first one to become an adversary in the world. Okay, the first one to be born of Satan, because it says, Christ said this himself, when you take on sin, you are indeed born of the devil. That's why you're called to be born again into the family of the Most High God. Okay, so let me make sure you guys can hear me, first of all. Sweet. Okay, you guys can hear me. Okay, so back to this. We have all of that before the flood, and then after the flood, we have a whole buildup of like Ishmael and Israel. Okay, two things split there. But we go even further to the time of Christ. When Christ came, you have Jesus of Nazareth, which you can say Yeshua of Nazareth, or you have Yeshua Barabbas. Okay, and the people had to choose between two, which one they were going to let loose. Okay, the thief Yeshua of Barabbas or Yeshua of Nazareth, and they chose to let the thief go. Okay, so but on top of that, they also have Simon. Okay, there's Simon the Zealot is what he's referred to. And there's also Simon, which you can also, some people call him Simon the Canaanite. Okay, is how that would be put. But there's also Simon who had his name changed to Peter. Then there's James the Lesser and James the Great. Okay. And then there's Judas Iscariot, who's bad. And then there's Jude Thaddeus, who wrote the book of Jude, is also Judas. There's a good Judas as well. Okay, and then there's Matthew, the good one, who wrote the book of Matthew. And then there's one chosen by the man, which was Matthias, which is another name for Matthew. You have a lot of doubles of that stuff going on. And we've covered that in depth here lately, which has been pretty bonkers, crazy. Okay. Tonight, I want to turn the spotlight a little bit. We are still going to dig deep into James, John, and Peter a little bit, but mostly James and John tonight. But we're also going to make sure we include the Marys, because you need to know that there's also a Mary Magdalene, there's a Mary and Martha, there's a Mary, the mother of Christ, and then there's, we're going to pull up a lot, okay, but it's technically the three, but they're translated different ways, which I'll point out to you as well. We're going to get into the different Marys as well and the significance of that as well. But let's also not forget the two Johns. There was John and James. They wanted to be the greatest in the kingdom and call down fire on the Gentiles. Then there was James the Lesser, and then there was John, the one who humbled himself as a servant, who didn't even want to strap the sandals of Christ because he just felt unworthy. Okay, keep those in mind and keep the name Mary in mind. So now I feel okay stepping forward because I did that kind of brief update. Here's where things get nuts tonight, okay? We have We have about 6 rabbit holes we have to go down tonight and a little bit of time to do it. So I think the best thing to do is start off with scripture. All right. So I'm going to get my screen share up here. If you have questions about some of the topics we've been covering tonight, I encourage you to come over to Beyond the Veils page. And when you get here, don't go to my home page. If you do, there's going to be like limited stuff here. Okay. I mostly do live streams. You'll find most of my stuff here in the live section. Okay. Right here, we have a whole lot. All right. Lately, though, I've been kind of putting things in playlists for you guys. So there's all kinds of things here for you to dig into with some topics I'll bring up tonight. One of those being the 1,000-year reign will be brought up tonight, and the American lie, which talks about how I believe that America is truly the old world of the Bible. Okay. And we have this, which is the book of Revelation. That'll be brought up a little bit tonight too. So I'll be talking about some of this stuff. This is a playlist where you can find extra information on that stuff. The James and John topic, the best one to talk about with that one tonight would be here. If you want to get more information on that, the Peter, James, and John stuff. Okay, so there's that. All right, so I'm going to get that one off the way. You see that we have a lot to cover tonight, so let's go on and get through some of these tabs. Revelation chapter 12 is where we're going to start tonight. Let me just ask really quick. Can everyone hear me clearly tonight? I would like to get some sort of feedback in the comment box below, just to let me know that I'm good on my end as far as that stuff. It does seem like you guys are following along a little bit. Awesome. Wow, I see that someone gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much for doing that, Valentine. Okay, yes, loud and clear, you hear me. Awesome. Okay, guys, here we go. So we're going to get, and I will say this, now that I know that, I'm going to get back out of the chat box because I don't want to be distracted tonight. I'm on a mission. I'm out here in the cold. My family and I, we are in Little Rock, Arkansas at a campground. I'm out here in a little tent outside in a camping chair with a little space heater. You can kind of see it glowing right there behind me. Okay. So here we go. Revelation chapter 12. Let's get into this. It's going to be nuts. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, and the moon was under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and cried, travailing in birth, and was pain ready to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in the heavens. For behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. And his tail drew the third part of the stars out of heaven and cast them down to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child, when she had brought it forth. So she brought forth a man-child, which should rule all nations with a rod of iron, and that her child was taken up to God and to his throne. I want to pause just so you know what's going on already, okay? All right. So what this is here is this is the story of technically the birth of Christ, if you want to be specific, all right? The beginning parts of Revelation 12 get into, the fulfilled prophecy of the one coming in between the seed of Eve and the seed of the dragon. Okay, you have 2 different seed lines there with a hero that's going to come between and crush the head and do those things. He came into the world. All right. With that being said, here's what happened. It said that the woman was ready to give birth. She gives birth to the child, but Satan wants to stop that birth. Okay, he wants to stop the birth from happening. That's why Herod does what? Well, he goes out through all the land and he starts killing all these babies, especially the firstborn males. Okay, any of the males that were born in that time, they were killed because he knew something was coming in that time. Okay, well, all of that happened, but somehow we know that that's all because of the Most High. Christ still came into the world, even with all that killing of babies happening. And Mary and Joseph and the baby, they went to Egypt, and they spent 2 years in Egypt while all that baby killing continued to go on for a little more until he finally died, okay, and was ate up in worms. Okay, after he dies, they go to go back into Nazareth and he raises up and everything. But I want to get back to this. That's where this comes, where he's waiting to devour the child. That's also parallel to Moses. When Moses came into the world, Pharaoh was killing all the babies in that world in that time because he knew that there was a seed coming in the world even during that time that would rise up against him. So he started killing all these babies, but somehow we know that it's the Most High allowed Moses to be not just raised, but raised up in Egypt, just as Christ. You need to know that. It's pretty wild. But anyway, so that happened. But see, that also takes place the same way as this. Okay. In the story, in the book of Jasher, it talks about Abraham and when Abraham was bringing his children into the world. Okay. Um, it says that during that time, that they were worried that his seed was going to be, was foreshadowed to kill Nimrod. But Nimrod took it as it was going to be Abraham that was going to slay him. So he went out to try and persecute the children that was trying to stop Abraham from his seed coming in. Well, little does he know that it was Esau. Esau was that fulfilled seed that came in and slayed Nimrod. So even then, you have the same thing of killing, rounding up, trying to stop something, and yet a child comes in to save the day. All right, over and over and over again. But the final fulfillment took place with Christ. He came into the world, just as it says here. Satan was ready to devour it, but she gave birth to the child either way. And then it says this, that the child was taken up to God. That's when Christ, the Son of God, ascended to the heavens at the throne of God to sit at his right hand on the mercy seat. Okay? Where it says right here, it says, so she brought forth the man-child, which should rule all nations with a rod of iron, and that her child was taken up into God, into his throne. So there we go. She delivered the baby, even though Satan wanted to devour it, and Christ was taken up to his Father in heaven. Okay? But with that happening, the woman was left behind. Okay? The Son of God was taken, but the woman was left behind. So here it goes. Because the woman was left behind and the Son was taken back to the Father, Satan and the woman remain on the earth. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared of God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Okay. So she's nourished. Nourished is another word used there for that time, time, and half a time. Or if you want to say here, 1,000, that they should feed her 1,260 days. You're going to watch where something actually parallels down here at the bottom of this chapter that goes all the way to Daniel. When Daniel talks about time, time, and half a time in the little scroll, he also, sorry, got that backwards. When Daniel talks about the time, time, and half a time, he actually gives it a number of 1,260 days. Okay, so let's pause and look at this real quick. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And there was a battle in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. But they prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, was cast out, which deceiveth all the world, and he was even cast onto the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Now I want to pause right here. Now, what this is after, okay? Satan was bound for 1,000 years, okay? After that, he's released. So what does he do immediately? He goes and starts accusing all the brethren who were taken up. Okay, that's the whole thing. Remember, Christ died. There was thunderings, there was lightnings, there was earthquakes, graves opened. Many saints exited their tombs, appearing unto many, and entered into that holy city. That took place. Okay, well, they were being accused until when Satan was bound. Okay, he was released back onto the earth again. That's where it's coming back here, where he was cast back onto the earth again. Now, pay attention to these next words. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now is salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. But they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. That's the 144,000. That's the old saints of old that were gathered with him. Okay. Now we're returned with him on the clouds. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, which hath great wrath, knowing that he hath but a short time. So here it is. He's cast back onto the earth for a short time, a short season, with a bunch of people still remaining on the earth. So here we go. But to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle. See, we are that eagle that has nourished her for a time and half a time for 1,260 years. We need to know that all of this goes back to even with Rome and Egypt and all that stuff, with the eagle, the falcon, and all that stuff. Well, America was at that place, okay, where she was nourished, where she was comforted. You need to know what that turned into, though. I'm going to make sure I lay all that out for you in a way you can understand here in a minute, okay? Here's where this whole wings of our political party come from, in the eagle, the land of the free, America, okay? With Lady Liberty herself, who's been nourished over here, okay? She has a right wing and a left wing, okay? That right wing and that left wing are the controlling ops that are used over here in that land, okay? But you need to know that her time, where she has 1,000 years of peace and 260 years of the time of Gentiles, if you want to be specific, is how Daniel puts it. So 1,260 years, okay? That is a time where during that point, something happens at the end of the 1,000-year reign where Satan is released back onto them. We find out when he's doing the letters to the churches of Ephesus and all that stuff, it's because they didn't repent. Because they didn't repent, Satan was cast back over to them for a short season, one last short season. So you have a camp of saints that remain behind, mixed with tares and wheats. You have the 144,000 gathered in the third heaven. You have Satan cast back down onto the earth for a short season, a short time, where the woman has been nourished and kept with an eagle with 2 wings for a certain time. But we know that that time has to come to an end. And we know that the eagle turns on her, and the people are turned on and put into captivity at the end of it. We know at the end they are overtaken by that eagle. They are overtaken by the government. Okay? That's how that happens. It's final deception. Okay? So, but to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might flee into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time. That's where Daniel's prophecy is fulfilled there. She's kept over here in this land over here for 1,260 altogether. She's been nourished. Okay, that's that time of peace, where she is nourished for time and times and half a time from the presence of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water after the woman, like a flood. Here's the mud flood of Tartaria, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood. Hence, earth mud, swallowing water, turning into mud, okay? The mud flood of Tartaria. Then the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went and made war with the remnant of the sea. What's the remnant? It's a little spark that's left behind. Hence the camp of saints that remained behind during the short season where he's cast back onto the earth. Okay, so he goes to make war with that seed, that remnant that's left over during this time that we're in right now, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So that's us. We have that testimony now. Okay, something that they didn't have right there at the time of Christ. They didn't have all of that yet until the disciples took it for that period, that generation they were in. Now, and I stood on the sand of the sea, and you know that this gets over into all the rise on the beast and everything else. Okay, so I wanted to show you this because it's very important to keep all of this in context. All right, so there's a woman clothed with the sun. She's given 12 children. You need to know this. Okay, when Christ was asked who were the people around him and stuff, and he said, well, he was approached technically, and they said, your mother and your brothers wait outside. He says, who is my mother and who is my brothers? And he says, my mother and my brothers are those who keep the will of my Father, ultimately. Okay? So, here's where this part gets to. All right. Now that we talked about that, I want you to know this. That woman was given a right and a left wing, right, to nourish her and all of that stuff until it was to be deceived and tricked during a short season and things when everything would turn against her. All right. Well, here's this. I've been going in depth with you guys lately about how Hollywood and our past history makers have put something in your face over and over again that you've missed, that I missed, that was mind blowing. And that's the whole James and John thing. Okay. For example, let's look at the characters named after John. You have John Wick. Okay. You have Jonathan Hacker. Who's that? Well, that's from the Dracula movie. We have John Watson. Who's John Watson? Well, John Watson is Sherlock Holmes' partner. Okay. Then we have John Keating, John Constantine, which is important, John Carnahan, which is works right next with Brandon James Fraser. James and Jonathan are the two that lead with the Mummy in the Mummy Returns and all that stuff, the whole Mummy franchise. And his name in the movie is Jonathan, and he goes with Brandon James Fraser. But anyway, then we have Stargate. We have Jonathan Jack O'Neill. You have Little John in the story of Robin Hood and Little John. You have John Shepard from Stargate, Johnny Bravo. Jonathan Kent, who is Superman's adoptive father. Okay. Then you have Jay, which is John Jonah Jameson. So his name has both, and he goes up against Peter Parker. We can do this all day. John Stewart, John Critchin, Jonathan Joestar, John Connor from the Terminator series. We know who that is. Jonathan Byers. Master Chief is the leader of Halo. His name is John. Then we go, on and on and on. We've done so much. Jon Snow, the King of the North. Let's see. You can see some of these names. It just goes on and on. I've just been doing a lot. John Hammond, who discovered Jurassic Park, but then there's John Mann from Interstellar. We just looked at it. Was just so much, and all these things had the same roles. Did you know Rambo's name was John? I didn't know that until I looked this up too. Dark Knight Rises. You got John Blake. Shoo. Johnny Cage from Mortal Kombat, which was the only technical mortal human size to represent the humans. Okay, we'll be talking about some of these. John Smith from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. We're going to get into that. It goes on and on. All these John characters who have the most important role as the head guy. Also James. Okay, I could get lost doing that right now. I don't want to keep going on too much. But I wanted to show you guys that because a lot of the stuff we brought up, it was no way of coincidence. But since we've done all the in-depth John stuff and James stuff, let's start looking at some other things. Okay? For example, the Marys and the different ways to spell John, which is like in German, it'd be Johann, Johann, and other things like that. Mary goes by Maria, if you want to go by the Mother Maria. Okay, the Maria, Mary, or Marie. Okay, and you'll see those names kind of mixed around places. But let's look at the three Marys of the Bible. Okay, the gospel refers to several women by the name Mary. At various points of Christian history, some of these women have been identified with one another. You have Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Jacob, which is Mary, the mother of James the Less. You have Mary of Clopas, okay? She's also mixed up with her. This is why I believe they're the same at some point. I believe they get mixed along with these other people that believe this. Then Mary of Bethany. All these different Marys kind of scattered. For those of you who are like, oh, it was a common name during that time and stuff like that, you need to go down that whole rabbit hole with names during that time. And then you need to come across Peter, who wasn't even a name during that time, and why he was given that name. Names are actually very specific in the Bible, and each one has a very specific meaning for a very specific purpose. So let's keep on going with this. All right. These Marys here all have different things. Like, for example, Mary Magdalene, she was originally possessed by 7 demons, okay, and cast out, and she became a follower of Christ. The Catholic Church likes to put her as the bride of Christ, like he married Mary Magdalene, okay, because she was the first to show up at the tomb and all these other things. Do I believe that? Absolutely not, okay? But there's multiple Marys mentioned. But I want to show you something interesting. Okay. With that, here's this. Okay. It's said that at when Satan is cast back onto the earth, he goes out to persecute the woman who gave birth to the child and her remnant during that time. Okay. We know that Christ, and during his return, he returns for a bride. Yes. Okay. But there's also bridesmaids and groomsmen. Okay. Those are usually like your brothers or sisters. You make them your best man and stuff like that. That's us. We're bridesmaids and bridegrooms and groomsmen. Okay. That's us. The bride is something completely separate that's been mixed in with all of it, just like everything else the modern day teachers have done. Okay. There's the bride of Christ, but there's also the bridesmaids and groomsmen that are waiting. Okay. Now, with that being said, there's this. It's said that as soon as Satan is cast back onto earth, he's wroth. Like he's mad, he's angry, he's red, he's angry at the woman. He goes out specifically after that woman, okay, who gave birth to a child, but also that remnant. I want to show you something nuts I've come across. For example, everybody's hung up on Roe versus Wade right now, right? Well, here's this. Okay. Do you really know in depth about Roe versus Wade? Do you know who Roe stands for? Like who carries the first names of Roe? Well, check this out. Known as Jane Roe, Norma McCorvey was the plaintiff in the landmark 1973 U.S. Supreme Court decision in Roe versus Wade. Here's her photo. Okay. But what I found crazy about this thing is this. Not only do you have this John and Mary Doe, but you also have this Dr. James. I want to do a little reading on this with you, okay? About why names matter and how like things like this are crazy and it's no way coincidences are happening. Watch this, okay? All right. I don't want to read too much, so I don't have to. Let's just start here. Dr. James Hubert Halford, a licensed physician who alleged that he had been arrested for violating the Texas abortion statutes, sought to intervene in Roe's action. John and Mary Doe, a married couple who were told by their physician that Mary had a neurochemical disorder and would need an abortion if she became pregnant, also filed a companion complaint. Okay, so here you have James, John, and Mary going up against Jane Roe, right? And the whole thing is about childbirth, right? You may think that that's like just a coincidence. But watch this. Don't you remember what happened at the death of Christ? What was said? Well, check this out. If you don't remember, here it goes. All right. Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments and made 4 parts, to every soldier a part, and his coat. And the coat was without seam, woven from the top throughout. Therefore they said one to another, "Let us not divide it, but cast lots for it, whose it shall be." This was that the scripture might be fulfilled, which saith, "They parted my garments among them, and on my coat did cast lots." So the soldiers did cast things indeed. But watch this. Then stood by the cross of Jesus his mother and his mother's sisters, Mary the wife of Cleopas, and Mary Magdalene. And when Jesus saw his mother and his disciple standing by, whom he loved, he said unto his mother, "Woman, behold thy son." Then said he to his disciple, "Behold thy mother." And from thy hour the disciple took her home with him. So what you have here is Christ looking down at his mom, Mary, and he doesn't call her mother. He says, "Woman, behold your son," as he looks at John. And he says, "John, behold your mother." And then it says, immediately that hour, John took Mary home with her. Okay, and that's the last you hear about Mary. Was Mary went home with John. John and Mary go home together, and Christ proclaimed that, hey, look, this is your mother, and mother, this is your son. Okay, very strange. All right. Now, I say that because of this. All right. Here we go. So there's the Roe versus Wade. I wanted to show you this. I started looking at some things with John and Mary, right? Let me see. I want to make sure I go through this in the right order. So here we go. Make sure we start like one. Okay, here, right here. So I started looking at things about like Mary and John, right? Here we go. Did you know that, John Smith is known for being the one who discovered all the New World stuff, being one of the founders who founded Jamestown. Jamestown was the first town established in the New World, was Jamestown, established by John Smith. Okay, and lots of other Johns as well. But you have John establishing Jamestown. But then John Smith became best friends with Pocahontas. Pocahontas ultimately ends up marrying another John in place of John Smith. But here's something else I found crazy. Do you know that in the middle of the New World stuff being developed by John Smith, you also have this? At the same time, you have a ship, a 400-ton ship that started sailing right there at 1600, same time, called Mary and John. It was a 400-ton ship that is known to have sailed between England and American colonies 4 times from 1607 to 1634, named in tribute to John and Mary Winthrop. Okay, we're going to look at her in just a sec. She was captained by Robert Davies and owned by Roger Ludlow, one of the assistants to the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The ship's first 2 voyages to North America were to what is now Maine in June 1604. Now, I wanted to show you that. I thought it was strange, okay, that the ship that brought everyone over here was entitled Mary and John, bringing some of the first settlers over here. Okay, but then there's this. Let's look down here. It was financially backed by another John Popham, which is strange. Found also. But there's that. So there's that Mary and John thing there. But then I looked at this. There's John and Mary. What is that? Well, John and Mary is a film that is actually based off a series of books written by Grace James. So you have James, once again, writing a book about John and Mary, like King James, who does one translation of the Bible, but then we have John doing another translation of the Bible right before him, okay? With your Tidnell and your Wycliffe Bibles coming onto the table and stuff like that right before, okay? But here's this. All right, let's do a little reading on this. Oh, check that out. It's John and Mary for the Peter Yates film. So, I mean, it's Peter, James, John, and Mary all in one sentence again. I guess it's a coincidence, right? Anyway, well, this one's about John and Mary revisit Rome, which is strange when you think about the fact that they left, they were comforted, and they went back to their, anyway, unless you piece that one together in your head there. But this is a book about all that stuff, same thing, but I saw the names tied in at the top, so I started doing some more digging. You guys ever seen the movie WALL-E? In the movie WALL-E, there was a great reset that took place on the Earth. WALL-E, the robot, was left trying to find life on the planet, okay? But it turns out he comes across the only other life besides WALL-E was Eve. And so Eve and Wally meet together, and they end up going to space, to this big spaceship in the sky where everybody's under a spell by the TVs and stuff like that. And it focuses in on a certain family couple in that comforted place in the sky. Would you believe who they are? You got it. It's John and Mary as they first touch and fall in love. Okay? Strange. But they're obese because they're drunk on the shores of Babylon, if you want to be specific, which I thought was pretty nuts. Okay, so there's that. Then there's this John and Mary film about the love between John and Mary, okay, which I thought was strange too. And it's also directed by the same thing, Peter Yates, directing a movie about John and Mary. Strange. But let's keep on going with some more of my findings today. Then there's this. This was strange. Okay. John F. Kennedy calls this place the most sacred acre. What's the most sacred acre? It's where little James was killed, not little James from the Bible. Don't get it confused, but watch this. Okay. All right. This is strange. A small, lonely tombstone stands in front of this cemetery. This tombstone of little James P. Morgan. You guys want to talk about the James P. Morgan catastrophe? Who died at the age of 5 years and 10 days old on November 28th of 1877. Cause unknown. James has been quite literally at the forefront of many ghost tours for as many years as I can remember. Children say they see him up in the trees playing around, swinging his feet. It is rather ironic that James is buried by himself. If you know about his story, one of the many continue to tell nightly. James was buried in his cemetery tragically long before his parents died. It seems as though his parents suffered. Anyway, so this boy James died there. He was like really famous and known, and John F. Kennedy calls it the most sacred acre in America, about little James' sacred land. But then I looked at something down here. This post was ended by a quote from Sherlock Holmes. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. I found that statement to be very, very timely for this decode going on right here, especially knowing that Sherlock Holmes worked hand in hand with his partner. This is crazy. Mary Elizabeth Watson, who was married to John Watson. So if you didn't know, John Watson is Sherlock Holmes's partner. Okay, John Watson is married to Mary Elizabeth Watson, which I thought was nuts too. On top of all of this, especially how that was tied in with that whole thing we were just talking about there. I know this live is all over the place, but just wait to the end and it'll all come together for you. Okay, just wait. Okay, I thought this was strange because once again you have a John and a Mary as a husband and wife, along with Sherlock Holmes, but a partner in crime there going on as well. I'm sure I can pull up how he's tied in with a James somehow, but I'm not going to do that right now. Let's keep on going. All right, so here we got this. I want to tie in Donald Trump, of course. I started doing some digging with Donald Trump, and we've already talked about this lady before and some of his crazy heritage names like John going by John, Barron Trump, John Titter Trump, John Trump, Donald John Trump, and so on and so forth. And we talked about his grandmother, Elizabeth Christ Trump. Would you believe it that her mother's name is Anna Marie? We talked about Marie and Mary. Anna Maria Christ and Philip Christ is the mother of Elizabeth Christ Trump. That's crazy to me. And would you believe that the grandparents, here we go, Johannes, because you got to know that they're German. Donald Trump has a German heritage. He was part of the whole Project Paperclip crew, was his mother. This is the woman, Elizabeth Christ Trump, brought the Trump family over from Germany. Okay. And would you believe that her mother is Maria Christ? Mary Christ gives birth to Elizabeth Christ, who gives birth ultimately to Donald Trump's grandfather and then Donald Trump himself. Pretty strange. So I saw these names all in him. And then we got this, grandchildren, Donald Trump and Mary Ann Trump. Strange, all those names. Just think all this stuff is crazy to me. It's no way that this stuff is coincidences. Ooh. So let's go in a little further. You guys ever heard the term Bloody Mary? You guys ever wonder where that comes from? Well, it comes from Mary the First of England. Okay, but it's also referred to as Mother Mary in a show called Sabrina. Mother Mary is standing in the mirror all bloody from the saints and things like that. But here is where Mother Mary originated according to history. This woman went on a killing spree in which she went and killed, I believe 280 religious descendants were burned at the stake in the Marian persecutions that she took part in, killing people, Mary and all that stuff. Hence where Bloody Mary comes from. But this got me thinking about like more persecutions involving Marys and things like that, right? Well, check this out. Okay. Let's see. Some variants of the ritual are called Bloody Mary. They have a different name. Also, Hail Mary and Mary Wharf. Okay. I thought it was strange. The other two names. Don't remember. I think I just had this up here as a second source, but I'm not going to get into that because I have some other crazy things. This is it. Here's where we're starting to get at now. Things are going to start getting a little crazy. Okay. I started doing some research on the name Mary and what has taken place since Christ. Okay. With the names Mary. All right, because remember, it says that Christ was taken up to his Father in heaven, but the woman was left behind with her remnant as well. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So I started looking at the Salem witch trials, but not just the Salem witch trials. I was looking at the witch trials that went all the way back to like everywhere, not just in America, overseas altogether. Would you believe this? What the #1 persecuted name was of all time during these trials? Mary. It's crazy. Mary, Jane, and Elizabeth are actually your top 3, which is wild. But Mary is #1 by a long ways. All right. But not just that. John is also thrown in the mix as well. For some reason, with this whole rise of the papacy and stuff like that, the names they've gone after most is literally John and Mary back to back to back to back to back. It was crazy to me. But let's look at this. All right. All right. Let's see. I don't want to read everything to you guys. I just want to make sure I pull out the main gist. Okay. Let's look at the afflicted girls. Okay. The Paris household applied ointment to the afflicted girls, yet their remedies could not restore them. Was there a natural cure for an unnatural disease? Betty and Abigail continued to flinch, crouch, and gabble, immune to potions or prayers. Reverend Parrish consulted the Reverend Colton Mather's memorial providences relating to witchcrafts and possession, whose account of 2 bewitched children matched Salem's own. Parrish began to believe that the devil dominated the young girls. Even Dr. Williams Griggs soon confirmed that Betty and Abigail were under an evil hand. Mercy Lewis, Mary Warren, and Mary Walcott, 2 Marys here, and Mercy, soon alleged with their afflictions, their bodies distorting and warping, arms outstretched and unbound. So what we have here are these 3 witches, is ultimately of these afflicted girls. These 3 afflicted girls are Mary Warren, Mary Walcott, and Mercy Lewis, in which they start going after them, saying that Satan had entered these women. Okay. Then I want to make sure I don't cover everything here. Let's see. Here we go. Let's look down here. Arrest. Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne were the first issued warrants for their arrest. Taken to Nathaniel Ingersoll's tavern, they were interrogated by Judge John Hawthorne and Judge Jonathan Corwin. Now you have these judges being Jonathan here, which is nuts because down here you have the same thing going on. I want to get out of this page though because this is going to be a lot of reading that I don't want to have to get into. But I just want you to quickly skim right here. I just did another random skim, and you have another John and Mary Parker and stuff popping up down here again. Mary Esteve, which we're going to get into as well. Strange. So let's look at something else. All right, so I started looking at something else. There's this show Salem that was out as well, okay? And I looked at this thing and found some interesting stuff here, okay? In this movie, would you believe that it's about Mary Sibley and John Alden, who are happily married together? Okay, and it's all about this nasty demonic possession and things like that, dealing with everything we've been talking about as well, which is nuts. So the Salem thing dealing with its main head witches being Mary and John, the couple. But then there's this. Look down here, everyone. They give birth to a child, the child being Little John. who is also Big John and is also the Dark Lord and the devil, Deadish. Strange. Then I kept on going, looking for some other things. All right. I came across this too. This is strange. The Tale of John and Mary, A Journey to Self-Discovery. This may be random. I don't know. A small town in American Midwest, John and Mary are two ordinary people who find themselves caught up in extraordinary circumstances. When they uncover a dark secret about their community, they must decide whether to speak out or stay silent. This thrilling tale of love, loss, and self-discovery will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last page. I want to read this book. I thought it was pretty wild. But anyway, let's keep on going. All right. Now we're here. This is where I want to get at. I've done this decode on Sabrina lately. My wife and me went through the whole series, and there is so much mess in here. I've done a post on it the other day about the vril and things like that as well. But I want to look at. I want you guys to see this. This is Mary Wardwell right here in the show. Okay, Mary Wardwell is this outer body flesh. Okay, Lilith has possessed Mary Wardwell. Okay, who is Lilith, you may ask? Well, Lilith is also the same her, same lady. It's just her dark side. Okay. Lilith is the dark side of Mary Wardwell. Okay. All right. So let's read some things on Mary Wardwell first. Mary Wardwell is a main character on Netflix's Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. She is portrayed by Michelle Gomez. She was a high school teacher at Baxter High before she was killed and her persona taken over by Lilith in order to corrupt Sabrina and send her down a path of night. However, Mary was resurrected by Lilith after she became Queen of Hell. Okay. So here's this. Much of Mary's life remains a mystery, but prior to the start of the series, she became a teacher of Baxter High and got engaged to Adam Masters. This is what's strange here, okay? Lilith talks all the time. By the way, if you've been watching the show, you know that Lilith marries Lucifer because she has to. She's forced to be his concubine at the beginning. Lilith was also, she states in the movie, her first husband was Adam, but then she left Adam and she was bound to Satan to be his concubine. She became his concubine and was named Lilith. She was Lilith forever. But then you have this. In this movie, when she became Mary fell in love with a man named Adam who was perfect in every way and brought joy to her life and things like this. That's where Adam Masters come in. Kind of like Adam and Masters of the Universe, who was Prince Adam until he died and was resurrected as Adam, Master of the Universe, that we've talked about as well. But here's this. So you have Mary being the good version because she ultimately helps and saves everybody. But then you have Lilith, the bad, the mother of abominations in the background, played by the same actress in the movie. Okay. One of them actually being Mary. So there's that. Let's go on to the next. Now here's this in the same show. I'm the mother of demons, the dawn of doom, Satan's concubine. I'm Lilith, dear boy, first wife of Adam, saved from despair by a fallen angel. I call myself Madam Satan in his honor. Lilith to George in chapter 10 of The Witching Hour. Lilith, also known as Madam Satan, is the main character of Netflix's Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. She is portrayed as Michelle Gomez, initially acting as Sabrina Spellman's frequent mentor. Lilith simultaneously corrupts her to the Dark Lord's desire. However, their relationship takes a drastic turn after Sabrina discovers Lilith's true intentions. It's only when their desires to take down the Dark Lord coincide that the two come together, and it's in stopping Lucifer that Lilith's goal is becoming Queen of Hell comes to fruition. Okay, so I wanted to show you that. I thought it was strange because we have the same thing, a Mary in one form and a Lilith in the other. All right, so let's keep on. All right, let's see what this is about. Oh yeah, here's Adam Masters. Okay, Adam Masters was a reoccurring character during the show. Adam was a perfectly nice man who was upbeat and only wished to be with the love of his life, who was Mary Wardwell. His name Adam is a biblically baby name. In biblical, the meaning of the name of Adam is earthy red. The surname Masters is English meaning master. All right, so there's that. And that's the husband of Mary Wardwell. Which, by the way, if you didn't pick up on that, that ties into our first Adam and second Adam, first Adam and last Adam, the lion and the lamb, if you want to be specific. Now, here's this. Now I want to, let's see. One sec. I want to make sure. All right, cool. All right, here we go. Now I want to get into this next part, okay? We've done a whole lot of decodes on John, but this time I want to specifically start on something with you guys about John Smith. I have this book. Man, you guys can't see it. To right there. It's called The Two Babylons. It was given to me by one of you guys. I've been reading this book and it's nuts, okay? But I have something I wanted to show you guys that I thought was nuts about the name Smith, okay? Before I jump into this, though, I want to show you what we have pulled up here. John Smith is another one of those names that you see literally everywhere now. Why? Well, check this out. You know that John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith is John James. Jacob and James, as we've learned in our past decode, is the exact same name. James's real name was Jacob. Okay, the only reason why they didn't give it that true name was because of the people would take it as being Israel. Okay, so they stuck with James. But if you want to be specific, James comes from Jacob. That's where John Jacob, if you want to be specific, when it says his name is our name too, they're saying that everybody's name's John James Jingleheimer Smith. Okay? Well, watch this decode, guys. This is nuts. All right. Here's a list of some John Smiths in movies. Okay, there's John Smith, the anatomist, the chemist, all these things, on and on and on. John Smith, John Smith, John Smith. There's so many John Smiths. Famous people, business people, people in crime, law, military. It is a very, very commonly used name all over the place. Goodness gracious. You can sit here and click on this stuff and learn so much about these John Smiths. It's just nuts. Look at them all. Going and going and going and going. You guys are like, well, let's look. It's just a common name. Watch this. Let's keep on going and going. Look at all these John Smiths. John Smith. John Smith. Then we got John Doe as well down here thrown in the mix. But John Smith, and John Smith as well. I wanted to show you John Smith because John Smith is brought up in this book right here. Okay? And don't get this John Smith confused with from the Matrix, the bad guy, John Smith. This is Agent John Smith, okay, who goes up against Neo. And don't get Neo confused with John Wick. Okay? But John Smith is the parasite that takes over the Matrix series, is John Smith, right? But we also have John Smith, who founded the New World, as we were talking about earlier, right? Well, watch this, guys. Here we go. Let's start looking at this, all right? Let's look at Adolf Hitler's tie-in with John Smith's, multiple John Smith. Starting with this one. Adolf Hitler was the Führer, or former chancellor of the Greater Nazi Reich. I don't know how to say that word. He oversaw the birth of the Third Reich and led Germany through World War II. He was the Führer, I hate saying that word, for about 30 years until his assassinations by rock minister Martin Huseman, whose crimes were later exposed by John Smith. You have a John Smith working to expose the things against this case with Hitler here, right? Well, watch this. It's not the only tie-in with the John Smith. What about this John Smith? This John Smith right here worked hand in hand in the SS with Adolf Hitler as well. Okay, here he is, John Smith. But don't get him confused with this John Smith, Johannes Smith. Okay, this Johannes Smith killed the guy who was going to be killing Hitler. Okay, and was called out specifically by Hitler as his right hand man. Here's that Johannes Smith, who, by the way, is the one where Red Skull gets his name from, Johannes Schmidt. Okay, that brings me to this. Who is Red Skull? Well, Red Skull, Johann Schmidt. He's part of Earth 616, along with others. And if you know 616, there are translations of Revelation that says the number of the beast is 616, but there's also translations that say 666, which I found to be strange because there's an Earth 616, but there's also an Earth 666. But this John Smith comes from Earth 616. He's known as Red Skull. You see him here. John Schmidt, a little background story. The Red Skull was the son of a coarse, drunken German villager named Hermann Schmidt and his formerly saintly long-serving wife, Martha, who for years endured abuse and beatings from her husband. Martha died, giving birth to Johann, their only child, driven to madness by the death of the woman he both loved and hated. Hermann Schmidt tried to drown the newborn infant, accusing him of murdering Martha. The doctor who had just delivered the baby saved John from his abusive father, and the following day, Hermann Schmidt committed suicide. The doctor then took John into the orphanage where the child led to a lonely existence. John ran away from the orphanage when he was 7 years old and lived on the streets as a beggar and thief. As he grew older, he worked at various menial jobs and spent most of his life in prison. Okay, so there's all that. That's the little background story of him. Okay, but John Schmidt is the Red Skull. Okay, I'll show you how he became that in another one here. Here he is as the Red Skull. All right. There was something down here I wanted to show you though on this one. Yeah, let's wait on this one. Let's do this. All right, so John Schmidt as Red Skull, what he does is he becomes the head of Hydra at first, okay, working hand in hand with Hitler. Hitler appointed him as his right-hand man, okay, and in Hydra, okay, Red Skull, the point of his Red Skull is because he has an interchangeable face. Okay, that's the whole thing with the politicians wearing masks and things nowadays and all that stuff that's going on. Skin suits. Hydra is the living vril that's a parasite that allows the host to pass on from host to host to host to host. Okay, and they put a mask on top of these beings. Okay, that's how that whole thing started. But then I wanted to show you this, though. The whole thing with this is Hydra started with Hitler and John Schmidt. They started Hydra, the Thrill Society, all that stuff. I don't want to get too in-depth because YouTube likes to take that part, and when they hear me talking about that stuff, they start choking out my channel. So I'm really cautious right now with what I'm saying. That's why I'm a little stuttery with that stuff. Okay, so on top of Hydra and John Schmidt, you need to know who also became head of Hydra, who took over control from John Schmidt. Would you believe that John Schmidt passed his control over to this one-eye guy here, Baron Strucker, who's not to be confused with the guy from Waterworld, who also has one eye, who is also a character named John. But here's this guy, John Strucker, who became literally the head of the Hydra. Let's see where it gets at here. I'll show you that. Okay, yeah. So Baron Wolfgang von Strucker. And I'm bringing this up because Baron is another name that means ruler, just like Donald and Don, just like John Trump, who also went by Baron Trump. Okay, this is the tie-in to not just John Schmidt, but also to John Barron and Baron of this. Okay, and this also kind of ties in with what I posted for you guys the other day about Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Okay, in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, you have the Baron that's in charge of his great kingdom, where he does what? He persecutes all the children. Okay, gets rid of all the children in his kingdom as the Baron. Okay, with his wife, which is crazy because that movie took place in Bavaria at that kingdom. Would you believe that this is Baron Wolfgang von Strucker was born in the late 19th century to a Prussian noble family who had relocated to Strucker Castle in Bavaria. Following the Franco-Prussian War, Wolfgang became a Heidelberg fencing champion and was disfigured by a facial scar. Okay. So once again, we have another form of a John or Baron taking over the Hydra that we've been talking about in depth here lately. I wanted to show you that. So back to this, the Roe versus Wade. Okay. I brought that up for you guys earlier. Maybe it should make more sense now. In the Roe versus Wade case, it was all about abortion, the persecution and the killing of children. And the Roe is John and Mary Roe against the Wade case, which was a Jane Wade. All right. So I thought that was nuts because it was actually a Dr. James and John and Mary Roe going up against Jane Wade. So now you know why I brought that up. I thought it was strange because it actually goes right into what we've been talking about tonight. Then there's this. Oh yeah, we went through this earlier. This is where, Christ looks down at Mary and says, "Woman, behold your son," and, "Son, behold your mother," talking to John. Okay, now there's this. So for those of you that have been following along with my Facebook page, you know that I have been in Nashville and then Memphis over the last 2 weeks, and I've been doing some decoding there, okay? But also you need to know that those two places, I believe, are very significant. I've brought those two places up so many times on my channel about what I believe those places were and why they're so significant today, and the fact that I believe that Memphis, Tennessee is actually Memphis, Egypt, okay? And I believe that the Mississippi River is the Nile. We're going to be talking about that. I believe this too, that the Memphis, Egypt is where the chosen one will come out of, as well as far as like their kingdom be at as well. And I've also done Donald Trump's tie-in with Memphis, okay? And the fact that Memphis, Tennessee has built their pyramid strategically on the Nile, I believe purposely where it used to stand. I believe also that the Athena temple, known as the Parthenon or the Partheon or Parthenon, but anyway, Parthenon was built where the Athena temple is in Nashville. I believe that's a very key thing. But on top of that, I found out some other things while I was there doing some decoding. Let's start looking. First of all, did you know that the founders of Memphis, Tennessee, / I believe Memphis, Egypt, is John and James? John Overton and James Winchester founded Memphis, Tennessee. You see it right here. You're like, okay, well, what's the big deal with that? Well, here's this. Do you know that Nashville was also founded by James Robertson and John Donaldson? Now, they're not the same names as the ones you were just reading. These are different people. Now you have a James and John who found Nashville, and you have James and John who founded Memphis. Strange. Well, I started looking at other places, like, for example, New York. I've been telling you guys that Peter, the false prophet, the head of the Basilica, the Pope of Rome and stuff, he's a very key, important role. Well, Peter is the one who founded New York, which I thought was weird. But let's go on with this a little further. Check this out. I started looking at Maryland because, Maryland comes from this. If you look at Maryland, Maryland's name before it was Maryland, I've pulled this up on Decode before, it used to be Rome, okay? And we also know that the whore of Babylon is actually Rome as well. That's kind of like the ultimate thing behind it, is the form of her is Rome. And Babylon, Mystery Babylon again, Rome rebuilt / America today. All right. Well, Maryland is right beside Virgin. You have Virginia and Maryland, and then District of Columbia, Columbia being Lucifer, the light bearer, okay, the child of Diana, the child, okay? So you have Virgin, Mary, and DC. Virgin, Mary, and Columbia, Virgin Mary, and the light bearer, all right there in that unholy trinity over here on this side of the map, right? Would you believe this? I looked up the history of Maryland, and it starts off literally with a John. The recorded history of Maryland dates back to the beginning of European exploration, starting with the Venetian John Cabot, who explored the coast of North America. Okay, thought that was wild that even that you even have a John established in with the development of Maryland. Okay, but that ain't even it. Watch this, guys. Let's see. There's that. Where is this one? All right. Watch this. Boom. All right. So this should have popped up for you guys. All right. Cool. So look at this map. Just to show you something. Another one of those. Ain't no way this is a coincidence thing. Ready? This is a map of New England / New America, the New World, right? The foundation map of New England cartography, right? John Smith is the maker of this map. Then you have Simon / Peter. And then you have James Reeve, the one that printed it. So you have Peter, James, and John, all the ones who mapped the New World, and John's the main map maker here. Isn't that strange? You even have the Michael name that I've been saying is always hiding right in the background as well. But here's that. Find it strange that here on this map you have John Smith himself and Peter and James all tied in with this New World. And like I said, they were the ones who founded what? Jamestown. You have James and John and Peter talking about the New World and their establishment of Jamestown. Very weird. Okay. All right. Hold on one sec. Which brings me to this. Most people get hung up on Pocahontas and John Smith, but they don't even know the full story. Okay. Pocahontas didn't marry John Smith. Pocahontas and John Smith, they were a brother sister type thing, like as far as best friends. They were best friends for a while. She technically married John Rolfe. John Rolfe died, and then John Smith came back into the picture when he came back over to the New World. Okay, so you have this mother and father figure of the New World, Pocahontas and John Smith, with her also passing on from one John to the next, and then having a child ultimately named Thomas, which Thomas means twin. Okay, but let's read on this a little bit. Pocahontas, a daughter of the chief of Powhatan Confederacy, marries English tobacco planter John Rolfe in Jamestown, Virginia. The marriage ensured peace between the Jamestown settlers and the Powhatan tribe for several years. In May 1607, about 100 English colonists settled along the James River and the Virginia to found Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement in America. Okay. Well, we all know most of this story. I don't want to get into it too much. But once again, like I said, you have a James and John and another John all tied in with this story here. The New World. Okay. That word John Smith, though, rang a bell to me. Fun fact. A smith is considered a builder. Hence, the master builder and a blacksmith and a smith, a woodsmith, are all the same thing, smiths. Okay? Well, you need to know this as well. In this book here, The Two Babylons, this has the word smith in there, I found. It's pretty wild. Multiple times. But one of them stood out to me specifically. Okay. One sec. I got to get it pulled up. Check this out. On page 70 of The Two Babylons, you read this. Okay. We're going to talk about Pan, okay? Because you know there's Peter Pan, but then there's Pan, the bad god Pan, the Baphomet, all right? Well, do you know where that the word Pan, you know where it comes from? The word Smith. Watch this. Pan is said to have loved a nymph called Pytho, or as is given in another form, Pitys, which means smith, and also Pan. So you have Pan marrying another form of the name Pan. Pan and Smith have the exact same meaning. And what is Pytho and Pitys but just the name of a beguiling woman who, have being beguiled herself, acted the part of a beguiler of her husband and induced him to take a step, in consequence of which he earned the name of Pan. So, according to this, the words Smith and Pan are interchangeable, meaning the same thing, right? Strange. But then there's this. Let's look at this. Let's look at where the word Smith comes from according to this as well earlier on page 56. When the Babylonian system was developed, Eve was represented as the first that occupied this place. And the very name Benoth, that signifies childbearing, explains also. Hold on one sec. Okay, yeah. Explains also how it came about that the woman who, as Hestia or Vesta, was herself called the habitation, got the credit of having invented the art of building houses. Smith, which is what that word means, Hestia. So technically, the word giving to Eve, because of that whole knowledge, I guess you'd say, of building and that whole habitation of building, derives the word Smith, which, like I said, ties into the word Pan as well. Oh, my computer is unplugged. That is the problem. One sec. There we go. That should make it better. All right. So I thought that was weird. But then I found this in this book as well. For those of you that are about to be worshiping Christmas, maybe this will wake you up a little bit. Okay. The festivals of Rome are innumerable, but 5 of the most important may be singled out for elucidation is Christmas Day, Lady Day, Easter, the Nativity of St. John, and the Feast of Assumption. Each of all these can be proven to be Babylonian. And first, as the festival of honor of the birth of Christ, or Christmas. However, how comes it the festival is connected with the 25th of December? There is not a word in the scriptures about the precise day of his birth or the time of the year in which he was born. What is recorded there implies that at what time soever his birth took place, it could not have been on the 25th of December. At that time that the angel announced his birth to the shepherds of Bethlehem, they were feeding their flocks by nights in the open fields. Now, no doubt, the climate of Palestine is not so severe as the climate of this country, but even there, through the heat of the day, be considerable. The cold of night from December to February is very piercing, and it was not the custom of shepherds of Judea watching their flocks in the open fields later than about the end of October. What this is saying here in this book is saying that Christmas isn't set up around the birth of Christ. There's nothing in Scripture to back up the date of that being the birth of Christ. But what this does tie into is Lady Day, okay, which is technically the birth of Nimrod / Tammuz through Semiramis, okay, is how this ultimately goes back to Babylon, that whole worship of Christmas, according to this book as well. So while I was looking for James and John and Smith, and here I come across that, which I thought was pretty wild. So here it goes. Yeah. Now it is manifest that the Lady Day and Christmas Day stand in intimate relation to one another. Between the 25th of March and the 25th of December, there are exactly 9 months. If then the false Messiah was conceived in March and born in December, can anyone for a moment believe that the conception and birth of the true Messiah can have so exactly synchronized, not only to the month, but to the day? The thing is incredible. Lady Day and Christmas Day then are purely Babylonian. Very cool stuff for you there about why you shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, so there's that. I thought that that was strange that John Smith literally means John Pan if you want to be specific about it, John Pan. And then you have that whole tie-in with him with being Hitler. I mean, Red Skull and his tie-in with Hitler. But let's look at this, the founding of Nashville. This statue here is James and John in their founding. Okay? I didn't take this picture, but I'm going to show you some pictures I did take. Okay? Very strange stuff I found for you guys. All right. Okay, so I went to the. While this is loading, let me be looking at something else back here. Okay. I already went through that. Okay. Sweet. Okay, guys, so I want to show you this. I went to this Memphis pyramid, right? A lot of people don't even know this is a real thing. This is it within the top 10 pyramids in the world as far as height. This is 321 feet tall. And this one's located in Memphis, Tennessee. I did take this picture. It's been turned into a Ducks Unlimited. Not a Ducks Unlimited, a Bass Pro Shop, because he wants to make everybody fishers of men. Okay. So there's that. Then I want to show you this. When you go in there, it says "Welcome to Paradise," and it is nuts. If you haven't been in there, look at that place. It's huge. Pretty wild. This place is crazy. But anyway, that's the pyramid. That speaks for itself. But let's look at Nashville. Okay. When I went to Nashville, I was kind of blown away with the stuff I saw. Okay. You hear about the Athena Temple and stuff like that, but you don't really know the Athena Temple till you see it. Okay. For those of you that don't know, this is in Nashville, Tennessee. This is the, let me go to the starting place. Okay, yeah. So this is the Athena Temple in America. Okay. This thing was built supposedly during the World Fairs, which I have pulled up here some information for you guys. All right. This is a decode within itself. Okay. But outside of the Athena Temple, they only have a set amount of statues. Those statues are of 3 people. Okay. Mary, James, and John. The first statue outside of the Athena Temple, not only do we have Diana the light bearer right here, if you want to be specific, or however you want to put it. Okay. But this is John up top, the founder of Nashville, standing there. Okay. John W. Thomas, a native of Nashville, 48. Sorry, this isn't the founder of Nashville. This right here is one of the founders. Okay. Just had to put that in there. John W. Thomas, a native of Nashville, 48 years in service of the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railway, president for 22 years, president of the Tennessee Sentinel Expedition, who resulted in securing to Nashville this part. Okay, so there he is. All right. And then, all right, there's this. Right there beside that, in the background, there's an obelisk. Okay, this obelisk is missing its oh man, I'm having a, so at the top, the capstone, there's a capstone that sits on top of these things. They've done something with it. I believe those things harness energy, by the way, and they can be stored in those. And I believe that could be possibly why it's gone. I'm not real sure. But on the top of this obelisk, the capstone is missing. But this has been relocated or whatever. Check this thing out. This here, this obelisk is dedicated to the founder of Nashville, who is James Robertson. Big old obelisk, and it is nuts. Okay, so you have a statue of John, you have an obelisk erected to James, And then you have this, okay? This movement here, those women. Oh man, look at those chemtrails out there that day. It was nuts. Anyway, look at this. These women here, would you believe who their leader is? Mary. Mary Abigail Crawford Milton. Her right there in the center, leading the way. So we have a statue there of her as well, which I found was strange. And then this, the only other statue that I found was this statue here. And would you believe this? This monument marks the site of a woman's building at the Tennessee Centennial Exposition held by this park in the year 1897. Well, here we go. Here's the point. John Thomas and Mary Temple, that's a different Mary, are the vice president, the president up here, and the vice president as well. You have your John and Mary again. Super crazy. So what I'm getting at is the only statues they have around this Athena temples is a temple to James, John, and Mary, which is crazy to me, especially when you look at the temple itself has a Athena, a giant Athena holding Nike, okay, which I can show you guys now that I can get past this part. Let's look at this stuff here, okay. Let me get these things out here. Look, what this was here, I was going to show you. I'm looking at the time. I'm trying to save time. What this was 3 top witches that were persecuted during the Salem witch trials, all of them having the name Mary, but not just that. They're also tied in with John's as well. Mary tied in with John Proctor, okay? Right here, John and Elizabeth Proctor. Same thing. She was the servant of them. So tied in with that. Here was another Mary Parker. Would you believe this? Look at this, is nuts to me. Mary Parker, the other one who was executed during the witch trials. Look at all these Jameses and Johns. This freaked me out. James, Johns, and Marys, okay? Jonathan Corwin, Jonathan Hallworn, John Richards, John, I don't want to keep doing this long enough. John Hale, John Higginson, James Russell, James Best Sr., John Emerson, John Howell, Thomas and Mary, which we've been counting the Marys and Elizabeths. Let's go do those if you want to. But over and over again, this whole list is so full of Johns, and Mary, Mercy. These are all witches. These are the Salem witch trials, by the way. These are people killed during the Salem witch trials. James, John, Mary, over and over. Mary Marston, Sarah, Mary Post, Lady Mary Phillips, Mary Tothert, Mary Lovett Tyler, Mary Bridges, Mary Lacey Jr. and Sr. Johannan, we've talked about that. Mary Ecstasy, John Proctor, Mary Ayer Packer, John Willard. This is nuts to me. Over and over. John Durrett, Mary Bradley, Elizabeth, Mary English, John Aldrin, Mary Green. You get the point. Look at all that. 1,692 deaths, and almost every one of them are John and Mary of some sort. Even Jonathan Rumi plays Christ in The Chosen. It's nuts. Anyway, so I want to show you that because that's that Mary. And then this other Mary tied into what? Would you believe it? Yep. John. Here we go. She had a child also named John. She carried on the name of John, but not just John, but Mary once again. That's crazy. And Jacob Town, her brother, which we also talked about, is James. Wow. Anyway, just keep on going. I want to get back to this part. Now that I just wanted to exit those out so you see that we're about to be wrapping things up here. All right. Now, check this out, guys. Have you guys ever seen this? I'm going to ask you guys a question just to see if you guys are paying attention. All right. If you look at this picture, where is this picture? Anybody want to tell me where this picture is? Where is this picture? Where is this representative? Where is this? Anybody know? Anybody know? No, not Richmond, Virginia. Well, I've tried to tell you. This right here is Athena's temple. Okay. This right here is that obelisk I was showing you right here. Okay. What this is Tennessee. If you said Tennessee, you got it. This was, oh, man, all this mess popping up. All right. This right here was Nashville, Tennessee in 1897. This was during the World Fairs. Here's the story, okay? Supposedly here in Nashville, Tennessee, where the Parthenon is erected, this was, by the way, 1897. All these crazy buildings here were supposedly erected using temporary materials and built real quick. Supposedly. Now realize this wasn't during a time of like broadcasting news, like channel TV all over the place and cell phones and all this stuff. People weren't able to see things. They just had to give what they were told. Okay. You need to know that all of this right here was exactly what's happened in Tennessee. This is what they came across for the World Fair, and they said they built all this stuff. Absolutely untrue. This is where the Athena temple still sits today, where they've done nothing more than just doctor it up more than anything. It still sits there, okay? All this stuff, even that obelisk, which is now destroyed in a little bit with the capstone missing, is still there. All of this stuff is still there. A lot of this stuff here is mixed in with different buildings now. Okay, they have different buildings built around them, and they're probably turned into banks. They're turned into child support offices. They're turned into crazy things like that. Libraries, stuff like that. Okay, but yeah, this right here is the Parthenon. This is Tennessee. This was during the World Fairs. This is when they pretty much showed you, hey, we're the old world. We built this though. We built this real quick. This wasn't here. We built this. Well, strange. And if you don't believe me, here's where it says that about the Parthenon replica built for exhibition was made with temporary materials. Because of its popularity, it was reconstructed using permanent materials in a project lasting from 1920 to 1931, right before all the wars. Today, it was used as an art museum. Okay, so I thought that was pretty strange. Okay, let's see. Especially with, like I said, I believe that we are the old world. Okay, so there's that. I want to show you that. Oh yeah, this is it. I find it strange that the original statue, supposedly, of this Athena, the child, is missing its head. Okay, if you know, I've been talking about how John lost his head, and also the tie-in with John Mark, who came with his dead body brought back to life in the garden as literally Christ was being arrested. You have John Mark brought back to life, stripping his tomb linens off, running naked across in the background. Okay, I told you who I believe John Mark is. I believe John Mark is John the Baptizer brought back, just as it was foreshadowed. He's the one that wrote the book of Mark, was written by John the Baptizer, who was brought back. That's why the first story in the book of Mark is literally the life of John being brought into the world. Okay, his name was changed to Mark for all this confusion today. All right. So let's see. There's that. All right, there's that. Oh, yeah, fun facts. I'm not going to go through that day. I want to show you some more stuff though, real quick. All right, so with the Nile, I want to show you this crazy thing I came across. Isaiah 11:15 says, "And the Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty wind shall he shake the hand over the river and shall smite it with the 7 streams and make men go over dry shod. Strange when you look at the Mississippi River and it literally has 7 streams breaking off of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all coming off of the Nile. Okay, that's just one of the many things that I thought was pretty wild. That not only lines up, but if you take a map and place it over it, you also have that strange tree almost overlaid. The map's almost identical if you take it and flip, which we've done also as well. Okay, so another fun fact is this. I've shared this with you guys before. There are more pyramids in the Americas than there are overseas, but not just a little bit. Okay, Americas have more pyramid structures than the rest of the world combined all together. And yet that's the old world over there. They'll tell you that that's the old world, and yet Americas has more pyramids. More than 2,000 pyramids are the Americas. Less than 1,000 are overseas, if you didn't know that, by the way. Okay. Also, there's this. If you look up the tallest pyramid in the world, it'll take you to the promised land. California, San Francisco is 800 and some feet tall, and it's called the Great American Pyramid. I'll show you. So the tallest pyramid in the world is in the promised land, if you want to be specific. There it is. Everybody's like, that's not a pyramid. That is a pyramid. There's a giant capstone at the top, okay? And it is what it is. The tallest pyramid in the world is technically in the promised land. And it's 840 something, 853 feet tall, which is nuts. And yet it's in the promised land. Some people don't even know that's a real thing. So here's some pyramids right here. I found this map too. I think you guys would like. So what this does here is it shows you all the places in America that's named after places in the Bible. But what I found strange is this. It's entitled The New Promised Land, Biblical USA. Watch this, guys. Check this out. I will restore, and I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, and the cankerworm, and the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. Remember, I told you guys that the promised land was taken back over by all of those creatures. We talked about that. Well, it says that he restored it, which is the promised land restored to the people for the nourishment, for the time, and half a time. Check this out. Israel returns to judges in America. I will restore thy judges, and as I will restore thy judges as at the first, and thy counselors as at the beginning. Afterwards thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. No more 2 nations, a prophecy fulfilled. United April 9th, 1865, and I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountain of Israel, and the one King Jesus shall be king to them all, and they shall be no more 2 nations. Neither shall they be divided into 2 kingdoms any more at all. Ezekiel 37:22. So what this thing does is goes around with a bunch of scriptures that base proofs off the land that tied into the promised land, which I found is strange. For example, like, you know, the ark was built using gopher wood. The only place that gopher wood can be found is in Florida. Here's another fun fact. In the story of Abraham and Isaac, the sacrifice of Isaac, the ram was caught in the brush. The wild ram was caught in the brush. Well, the only place that rams are wild and native is literally as in Nevada over there by where the Great Hoover Dam is and all that stuff is. Hence why you have the rams as the mascot for that pro team over there. Okay. Well, that's also a promised land thing happening over here. Then you have the trees of Lebanon. The biggest trees in the world exist in the promised land, California. The Redwood National Tree Park, which is owned by Bohemian Grove. Okay. They own the biggest trees in the world. That's only found here in the promised land, America. Fun fact also, the word Nile and the word Mississippi have the exact same meaning. Okay. The Great River. Okay. Strange. Stuff like that I love. Utah is Judah, which has Mount Zion, and the 7 holy mountains that are named in the Bible are right there at Mount Zion, Utah, Judah, right before you cross over into the Promised Land. If you've ever played Oregon Trail, you know that you have to cross Oregon State to enter into the Promised Land. Salt Lake City became Salt Lake City, Utah, because the salt water of the Euphrates that connected the 2 oceans dried up, leaving salt in Salt Lake City, Utah, when the great Euphrates dried up and they entered into the, yeah, so we've already been into all of that stuff. So, thought this map was pretty cool. Okay. And then there's that, but I do want to show you some other cool maps I came across in closing with you guys. All right. Someone was talking about John Wayne Todd at the beginning of the movies and what he said about Salem witch trials, so I started looking at it, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I want to show you these maps before we close. So what I found here was a bunch of old world maps and stuff about Jamestown, which was our first town founded in the Virgin Mary, Maryland. I want to show you this. This one has the Atlantic Ocean named the Mary Ocean or Mare Ocean, which is strange when you look at Maryland and America. Strange that Mary is not just in that, but she's in the Mary Ocean. Okay. Then there's the Marianas Trench. You think about a Marianas Trench giving birth to something. And then there's this. The word Mary itself comes from this. When Adam married Eve, well, that word Mary in there. And then Christ, the mother of, Mary, marriage, married. You get married. You get marriaged. Married. I hope you get that. I hope that's piecing together there for you. So, strange things are happening here. Maryland. But yeah, so you get married because of Mary. There's this one. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything. There was some crazy stuff, but nah. Anyway, I'll get into that on my next decode because there's actually a lot of stuff I want to talk about with some of these older maps. But there's that. Okay. Shoo, that was a lot. Now I got people up here now that I'm at the end of this video. Okay. So there's all that. I thought all that was pretty crazy. Let's do a little recap. What I got into is this. I started out with Revelation chapter 12, where it says that the woman gives birth to the man-child. The man-child ascends into the heavens to God the Father. While it leaves behind the mother who gave birth to the child behind, the mother is given a new son who is John. Then the mother is persecuted. The one who gave birth to the child, it says that they will go after the woman after she's been nourished and in peace for a time and half a time for 1,260 years. It says that she's given wings of a great eagle to do that nourishment. After that time, Satan's released for a short season and goes out to persecute the woman, and also on top of that to go out and to stir up a war with the remnant of saints that remain behind. Okay. So all of that is tied in perfectly with the 1,000-year reign and everything else we've talked about, which is awesome. Okay. All of this proves the timeline we're in right now, and it also kind of proves a lot of what we've been talking about as well. So thought that was pretty strange. I know you guys probably have a lot of questions. I do know this. I have been kind of all over the place in this video, mostly because I'm trying to get back in the swing of things. Things have been a little hectic here. But I will be going back live now that I'm not shadow banned and restricted so much on YouTube, and they're letting me go back live again. I am going to be doing that, so be expecting me to be posting here in the next couple of days. Also, I am in Little Rock, Arkansas. I have a baptism here in Little Rock tomorrow afternoon. And if you're in the Little Rock, Arkansas area and would like to contact me, get in touch with my Beyond the Veil Fellowship page or Beyond the Veil page. Post up there, comment up there. Let me know if you want to, or message me, or however you want to do that. And we can make your baptism happen. After Little Rock, Arkansas, we'll be going down toward Louisiana area for a little bit. So there's all of that. I do have a little Sunday fellowship going on here as well too with some people. But there's all that. If you were wondering where I was at, my ministry I do have is still going crazy. I mean, we have a whole lot of people that are waiting right now in baptisms, while we're also waiting on people in the area we're at right now. We are still going to all the way to coast, California and back. If you haven't reached out yet, and you're in any of the areas moving forward, like Louisiana, Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, Utah, um, let's see, California, Oregon, Washington State, Wyoming, um, North Dakota, South Dakota. I'd love to get over there if there's some of you over there looking to get baptized. I'm going in all those areas. So if you're in any of those areas on that side, plus other ones too, Colorado, let me know and I can make your baptism happen. Okay. Wow, I see my sister-in-law up here. Hello, Daisy. It's awesome to see you. But anyway, there's that. Make that happen. See if I got any more news. I don't think I have anything else. But that last part I said was very, very important. If you're in the Louisiana or in Arkansas area, it's important and vital that you message me within the next day or two so I can line up your next baptisms coming up. Okay? Not saying you'll be baptized in the next day or two, but I need to get you on this list so I can plan accordingly. Make sure you reach out. All right? Now, if you're somebody that's just tuned into this video, I see there's 119 of you up here. If you could, go on and hit one of the buttons down below, like and subscribe and share. Do that so we get a little algorithm, but you need to make sure you start this back from the beginning because it's not going to make sense to you if you start in the middle or the end. So make sure you jump on that. All right. Also, if you would like to support this channel in any way, which, like I said, all this money technically goes straight into traveling and ministry with campground registrations mess every single day and the gas and food traveling. If you would like to take part in supporting that and any part of the ministry, I do have my Cash App and PayPal down here below. That's available for those that are able to. But if you're someone looking to get baptized and you don't have money and stuff like that, don't feel like I'm doing it for that reason, and don't let that be what's hindering you. You let me know, and that's why I'm doing this, so I can come to those who are not able to have a baptism done around them. So there's that. I'm going to get off here, though. I don't want this video to be too long. I'll be posting here in the next 2 days. I'll leave it at that. So be on the lookout. I love you guys, and I will definitely see you. Wait. Somebody said they're in New Orleans. Sweet. Sweet. Okay. Lydia, I see that you're in New Orleans. If you're seeking to be baptized in New Orleans, I'm going to give you my email real quick. Okay, let's see here. Create a banner. And if you could, start this email off with all capital letters, baptism, exclamation points going crazy, so I can see you on top of all the spam. All right. Here's my email. Okay. You want to take that down, send me an email, and we can make your baptism in New Orleans happen. I have a lot of decoding I wanted to do down there anyway. So I told Amy I felt like someone in that area was wanting to get baptized. So I guess it was you. So that worked out awesomely. So sweet. All right, I don't see anything else. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's a lot for you guys to process and take in, so if you have to rewatch this a couple of times, that's perfectly fine. Just know I'm not making you sit down for an hour and 50 minutes and watch the whole thing, but there's some very important information that's been put out in this video for you guys to dig into. Also, for reference points, this was the book that I pulled some of the stuff from tonight, The Two Babylons. Okay, and would you believe it that in the opening parts of this book, you have you got it. Lord John Scott was who it was written to. And would you believe that on the page right before it, you have James Wood down here at the bottom as the. Isn't that crazy? Like, I don't know how any of that is coincidences. It's weird to me. So anyway, love you guys. I'll see you on the next one. I hope you enjoyed it. Good night from Beyond the Veil.